Welcome to this week's episode of the Inside Kingston Podcast, where experienced professionals, entrepreneurs, and community leaders based in Kingston upon Thames are invited on to share their story with us. I'm your host, Amyr Rocha-Lima.
This week's episode of the Inside Kingston Podcast is brought to you by Holland Hahn Wills, a financial planning and wealth management firm based in Kingston upon Thames. Holland Hahn Wills specialises in retirement planning for senior professionals and successful business owners. Visit hhw-uk.com to start feeling more relaxed and confident about your financial future.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Inside Kingston Podcast. I'm joined today by Josie Shepherd. Josie is the founder of Ginger Paw, a canicross training company offering its services in Kingston and the surrounding areas. What's unique about Josie is how she's managed to combine her passion for dogs and fitness into a side business as part of an effort to diversify her income streams. And be sure to listen to the end, where Josie shares with us some tips on how you could get started on your canicross journey. So whether you're interested in knowing more about canicross or would like to know more about what it takes to run a successful independent business, then I hope you enjoy this episode of the Inside Kingston Podcast. Welcome, Josie Shepherd, to the Inside Kingston Podcast. Josie, I'm really excited about this conversation because although I've seen a lot of people running in the park with their dogs, and some of which actually look like they have a lot of gear towards doing that, I must admit that I wasn't aware of canicross as an exercise discipline. And I'm sure that myself and our listeners can learn a lot from your experience in this area. But to kick off this conversation, I'd like to go back in time, if that's okay. So, Josie, where did you grow up?
Yeah, thanks, Amyr. And firstly, thanks for having me on. It's great to be here and to be having this conversation with you. So I grew up in Sussex originally, in West Sussex, and spent my childhood there. And then I've moved around a little bit actually before living in the Kingston borough. So I studied at Leeds University. I did a year living in the US, doing an exchange year. Studying and living there. And then I've been in Southwest London actually since 2007. So quite a number of years now, firstly Twickenham and then more recently in New Malden. So very much now a Southwest Londoner.
Very cool. And you mentioned Leeds there. Did you go to university there? And if so, what did you study?
I did, yes. I went to Leeds University. I actually studied music. So it was something of a sort of childhood passion of mine, and at the time I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do after that, whether I wanted to try and make a living performing or do a sort of a mix of some freelance performing and teaching, and in the end I got to the end of my degree and decided that actually I didn't really at that stage want to have that portfolio career of trying to sort of juggle lots of different things. So I made, I suppose, my first pivot, if you like, after that, and started a career in marketing and PR.
Oh, wow.
So I was looking really at sort of the more creative end of business. And that's where I sort of built my career for the first 15 years, kind of up to the present day. So starting in a small startup, and I've worked in across the various sectors and in companies of different sizes, sort of running brand marketing and communications campaigns. So that's my sort of professional background.
Oh, very cool. So going from marketing and PR to canicross, and bringing this conversation sort of more to the present, could you tell us a little bit about your business today?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess the sort of the context and the background for this is that I've always been a dog lover, but I didn't get my own dog until nearly 4 years ago. And it was something that I really ummed and ahed about, at the time, doing a full-time job, commuting into central London, thinking, how could I possibly make this work? And in the end, I decided I could, with the right support and the right help from a dog walker, and all of that kind of thing, to make it work. And I had also been running recreationally, as a hobby, something I started back in 2010, and was doing a lot of that. Everything, from sort of 5K up to half marathon distance at that point.
Oh, wow.
I really wanted a dog that would become my running buddy, a dog that could run with me. But I didn't know at the time that canicross was a thing. I just thought, well, okay, I'll go and do a park run, and the dog can come with me, and I'll pop him on the lead, and I'll run him like that. And I tried it once, and actually I realized from that it was so uncomfortable, because if the dog is on the lead as normal and you're holding the lead with your hand, you actually lose one arm that you would normally be using to kind of propel yourself forward while you're running. So it's not very comfortable. I just thought there has to be a better way than this. So I started looking into it, and that's how I came across DogFit, which is the company that I'm now associated with, and this sport of canicross, and realized, it is a thing that you can run with your dog, where they're in a harness that is specifically designed for running, and you also wear a harness that is designed to be attached to them with a bungee line. So what it allows you to do is to be able to run with your dog attached to you, but where you are completely hands-free, and instead you're using vocal commands to tell them what you want them to do. So it's much more comfortable, it's much more efficient, and it's a really, really fun way to get out and exercise with your dog, sort of by your side. So I got into that as a hobby. I found a group locally, and very quickly I just thought, I love this. This is such it's such great fun. It's a great way to be getting my exercise in, as well as my dog. And I decided, at that point, that I'd love to sort of set up my own group, and to be introducing other people to this incredible sport, that I found kind of by accident, really. So that's how it came about, and it was in the sort of the latter part of 2019. So sort of rewinding, I suppose, to just a few months before the first lockdown, where I set up Ginger Paw Canicross, which is my little business operating under the DogFit brand. So DogFit is the sort of national company that has a network of trainers across the UK and internationally, and sells all of the kit that you need, to get started with canicross. So I'm part of the sort of the DogFit family, but operate my own little business under that, very locally, sort of in the Kingston borough. So that's it in a nutshell.
Oh, that's very cool, Josie. And there's quite a lot there that I want to sort of different threads that I want to pull with you throughout this conversation. But I first want to start on just trying to help our listeners familiarize themselves a little bit more with canicross. Because again, in your description of it there a second ago, I think the listeners can already start picturing in their mind folks that they've seen running in the park, perhaps with those sort of more specialized type harnesses. And you mentioned voice commands and stuff. Could you expand on that a bit further and describe to us a little bit more about what canicross actually is?
Yeah, of course. So to sort of take it back to basics, if someone's thinking, I've never heard of this, I still don't really understand what this is. It's essentially the sport of trail running with your dog. So they are in a harness, they're attached to you. So it's different in how you might see someone that's running with their dog on a lead and collar, in the way that you might normally walk a dog, or where a dog is just free running, with their own and not attached. So the specific difference is that they are in a harness that is a technical harness that is designed for them to run and to pull in, and they are attached to you by a bungee line. So as the dog owner, I would wear a harness which is a bit like a climbing harness. So it's one that you would step into. So it has leg straps, does up around the waist. And then the bungee line attaches between the human harness and the dog harness. So you've got that constant link between you. And then the idea is that your dog will pull out in front. So you're actually getting a bit of extra pull power when you run, which is amazing. And for them, the way that I teach my clients and the way that we talk about it is that it's very much like the dog is they're doing a job for you. They're working for you, sort of in their uniform, if you like. And so it's great for them to, I guess, particularly for active dogs and working breed dogs, to have that job to do. It's a really good way of sort of releasing energy for them. And the way that they pick it up is through the vocal commands, which we use to tell our dogs what we want them to do when we're canicrossing with them together. And they are not as sort of complicated as they as they might seem. It's really about getting the basics right, so that they understand what you're asking them to do, right from kind of let's go, which is about getting started, understanding and being able to respond to directional commands, so left and right, which is really important. I think when we get back to being able to run in bigger groups, for example, at a park run or other events where canicross is allowed, you need to be able to navigate around other people or other obstacles, or make sure you're going the same way around a tree or whatever might be in your path. And then there are others that we use as well, really to make it a sort of a smooth experience in terms of working together as a team. So there are other commands that will tell your dog not to get distracted, by something that they might see, whether it's a squirrel or a kind of a good smell that they want to stop and sniff, as well as how they navigate going up a hill or down a hill, so that you're not being, sort of pulled off in a kind of an uncomfortable direction or way. So that's the way it works, really. It's about having the right kit. It's about knowing the commands that you're teaching your dog, and how to use them, really, so that they understand what you're asking them to do, and then you can go out and have lots of adventures together. So that's how it works.
Oh, that sounds like a lot of fun. It really does. You mentioned sort of active dogs there. Are there particular breeds of dogs that are more suitable for this sort of thing and versus others? Josie, is there that sort of mindset at all in canicross?
Yeah, it's a great question. So it's brilliant in that actually it works for almost all dogs. It doesn't really matter about the size. Large and small dogs can get into canicross. One of the sort of key things to be aware of, if someone is listening and thinking, oh, that sounds great, I'd love to give it a go with my dog, is that generally dogs have to be at least 12 months of age. Sometimes it can be slightly older for larger breeds, and the reason for that is that we want them to be fully developed and for their growth plates to be fully developed, because we wouldn't want to be running with a younger dog where that isn't the case, and it could do them some damage if you try and get into it too soon with them. So that's a really important thing for anyone listening to this thinking, oh, I want to give it a go, to be aware of that. It's 12 months minimum, but it's always better to check that with your vet, because it can vary depending on the breed.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Aside from that, the other thing that it can be really good for in terms of particular types of dogs is, I'd say, active dogs. So I have a working Cocker Spaniel. So he is bred, to be, he's a family dog, but he's bred to be out sort of in the field, picking up and working in the field. So he comes with a lot of energy, and for us, it's a really, really good outlet to help kind of release some of that energy and to use up some kind of mental energy, as well as just the kind of the physical of going and sort of running in the field. So for anyone that has a very active dog or a working breed kind of dog, it tends to suit them really well. And then the other kind of group, I'd say, which some people might be a little bit more surprised, to hear about. This is, I suppose a kind of a good kind of myth buster, is that actually dogs that are, can be reactive or perhaps have some behavioural issues, it can be really, really good for them as well. And the reason for that is because as the owner, you are always attached to your dog. It's actually very safe and secure, even to be running in a group. Which is one of the joys of canicross, to sort of run in a little pack, with other people. The dogs love it, being able to run together. And it's really good, as I say, even for dogs that, might be rescue dogs or might not be, might just be dogs that have recall issues, that maybe can't reliably be off the lead. It's a great way to give them the right exercise that way, in a way where they are always attached, so you don't have to worry about that in terms of them coming back. And for those that have perhaps some behavioural issues, maybe they are reactive to other dogs or reactive to cyclists or perhaps other runners or, whatever they might come across. It works really well for them as well because they are in that sort of safe, secure environment where they're attached to the owner. So actually it is it's very secure in that sense. And
That's
it works
because
really well.
Yeah, and it sounds great because it gives the owner a chance to get some exercise in as well, right? Because that's the thing. You're basically really getting and stimulating in an energetic way a potential energetic creature, even with some of those nuances that you mentioned. But you as the owner also get to benefit from being outdoors, getting another run in the bank and all of that good stuff.
Absolutely. It's another kind of key benefit, I suppose, that I was going to touch on, that I think we are all busy, right? I mean, maybe less so over the last year, but in general, we lead very busy lives. We have lots going on and we're trying to juggle lots of commitments. And certainly I found when I got my dog, it was suddenly that bit harder to think, I've got to make sure he's getting the walks that he needs. But then I'm trying to fit in my workout or run or whatever it might be on top of that. That would be the thing that might get compromised because obviously I want to make sure he's getting the exercise that he needs. Whereas if you build canicross into your life and as part of the exercise that you're doing, it is that added benefit of your dog is getting what they need in terms of the exercise, but you are too. You don't need to sort of walk the dog and then think, I've now got to go to the gym or I've now got to do a separate run. So it's actually great from a sort of a time pressure point of view. It's a brilliant bonding activity. It's a really lovely thing to be able to do together with your dog that, as I say, most dogs love. You basically have your PT, the best PT you can have in the house with you, wanting to kind of to go out with you. So it's making exercise fun. And I think actually the other thing I'd add that's sort of come up more recently that I think it can be good for as well is that I know, some people might be sort of cautious about solo running. They might have concerns about the rise in dog theft, that we've seen recently. I know that's been a sort of a horrible outcome or a kind of a trend that we've seen going through lockdown and over the last year with the rise of dog ownership generally. There's been this increase in dog theft, and I think for me certainly I feel more secure, I suppose, having my dog attached to me, but still knowing that I can take him out and do a really good workout. We will go down the park and he'll run off lead as well. And obviously I'm just mindful of my surroundings and being aware of that. And I would sort of encourage all dog owners to read up on how they can sort of keep themselves and keep their dogs safe given this sort of horrible trend that we've seen. But I do think it sort of has an added benefit, I suppose, of giving you another option where your dog is attached to you and it might just feel more secure if you're wanting that variety.
Absolutely. And, Josie, the reality is that over these last 12 months, I think more and more people have started recognizing the benefit of exercise, and a lot of this has been talked about in the last few episodes here on the show, even just via a simple, regular, consistent walk around Kingston. And people have just found like a new pleasure in doing that in a way that perhaps before, as you said, because life is so busy, it was easy to ignore that. And it's interesting how I think people will not want to ignore that so easily anymore. One, because it's on our doorstep, but two, because you do get a genuine sense of accomplishment when you've gone through for a long walk or even a run. You come back home, you've yourself released some of that energy, and of course, if you're doing it with your dog, as you said there, you're getting that sort of energy out there as well for the dog to come back home just that bit more calmer, that bit more tired, and ready to settle into home life as well.
Absolutely. I think, you've touched on that really well with the well-being sort of side of it and that benefit that I think we've all, as you say, have all kind of discovered over the last year. And it's probably worth saying actually with canicross, it is possible to do what's known as canitrekking. So it's essentially using the same kit but at a walking pace rather than running. So for anyone that's listening and thinking, I can't run, for whatever reason, whether it's a medical thing or perhaps they're just just feeling that's something they don't want to do, it is still possible to canitrek, with your dog and go off on a hike and in the kit, and still be able to sort of teach the commands and treat it in the same way, I suppose, as that sort of really good exercise, just without the running part. And in fact, that's what I do with my dog if we are sort of pre-lockdown, if we were going away, perhaps to let's say Devon or Cornwall or sort of coastal path, and doing that kind of walking, or somewhere where there's livestock and you have to have your dog on a lead or sort of under close control. That's where having this kit, can be really helpful for sort of hikes, or if you were attempting to, I don't know, climb a mountain with your dog or something like that. Yeah. It's really, really good for those kind of examples as well, not just the running element. So I've actually found I use it so much more than I had anticipated, I suppose, when I first sort of discovered this sport and thought I'd get myself the kit.
Now, Josie, before we pressed record, we were talking about the fact that Ginger Paw is a side business of yours, which you now plan on sort of increasing the activity in over time to create like a really interesting work-life balance in your life. And we've had previous guests here on the show who have done the same. They have their career or their profession that they're active in, and they have this side business, but over time they find a really interesting balance between what previously was perhaps a commute into the city with a more local job, and also a diversification of income streams. So for the benefit of our listeners, I wondered if you could just tell us a little bit more how you found that in your life and how you're making it work for you.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's a great question. I think one that's really relevant, as I'm sure a lot of people might have been, thinking about their own work-life balance or what their future career plans look like as we've navigated, this last year of sort of great uncertainty. So for me, it was something, I suppose, that kind of happened quite organically in discovering canicross as a sport and as a hobby, and then thinking actually it's something I'd love to do more with. But also, thinking at the time I was in a full-time marketing role, and how could I do this whereby it was sort of building something up sort of slowly and sustainably on the side, that also would fit in with an otherwise quite busy life, already with what I had going on. So that was the sort of the starting point for me. And actually with this kind of business, I think it does fit quite well in that a lot of my clients want to do weekend sessions. They want to come and do a session perhaps on a Sunday morning, or one-to-ones that can be quite ad hoc. So it does work really well in that sense. And I think the nature of what I do in terms of sort of leading, whether it's either group runs or taking people out on one-to-ones, it works really well as a sort of a part-time small side business. It's not the kind of thing probably that I could do full-time, even if I wanted to, because obviously I would be exhausted, from back to back running all day, as would my well, actually, no, he'd probably love it, but no, my dog would be too. It wouldn't be, it wouldn't be, sensible or encouraged to be trying to do that much. So it does work really well in that sense as something that that I can do as a small thing. You mentioned about sort of how that might change over time, and for me as well, it's something that I think fits into my life now with quite a lot of change that's happened over the last year. So I'm off on maternity leave at the moment. I had a little boy back in October. So actually I wasn't doing, for obvious reasons, wasn't doing any running really in the sort of the second half of last year. And I'm just sort of gearing up to start things back up, after lockdown eases. So, timing wise, that's quite good for me. But I will at some point in the future, I expect, go back into a marketing communications role that maybe full-time, maybe part-time, maybe some kind of hybrid, and still have Ginger Paw on the side, very much intentionally as a side business, and sort of creating this portfolio career, if you like, to describe that. And as I said, that was a very intentional decision, because it's something that I can flex over time. I would expect to do more probably during the summer months, just because we have longer days. It's a little bit easier to fit in evening sessions. If someone wants to come and do an evening one-to-one, it's much nicer, to do that in the light rather than in the dark. So it has the scope to do a little bit more during the spring and summer months. For me, it really works, and it's I suppose, as I say, an intentional thing to be looking at how I design my career, for the future in a way that gives me sort of maximum flexibility, still allows me to pursue what I've done professionally, in my day job, as it were, over the last sort of 15 years. But adds in that diversification of having something else that is also a real joy for me to do in introducing the sport to other people, and allowing as many people as possible to discover the benefits. So I suppose it has a kind of a higher, meaning for me, I suppose, in what I think it can do, rather than it just being another job, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. That makes a lot of sense, Josie. And it's interesting, as I said, I've had a number of guests on the show now who have actually made that work like you're making it work for you. And it's fascinating. I expect to see more and more of it, that's for sure, especially when people blend something that they're passionate with together with a career that they've built a skill and a portfolio in already. And it gives them that sense of a more meaningful, holistic sort of working career that sits alongside their family life. That's brilliant. Josie, what are some of the key business lessons that you've learned throughout your life?
Oh gosh, what a big question. Great question. I think I would start with something around that success is yours to define. And what I mean by that is that I think we can all get caught up in what that is, and thinking it's about climbing the traditional career ladder, or that it's about more money, it's about status, it's about some of those other things. And it's not to say that's wrong, and that might be the case for some people, but I think it's particularly given the changes that we have seen and had to navigate over the last year, I think it's a really interesting one to think about for yourself in terms of what success looks like for you. And actually, is it those things, or is it something else? Is it about more flexibility? Is it about doing more of the work that you love? Is it about more variety? There's all sorts of different things. So I think it would be about having that curiosity around what success looks like for you, rather than the very sort of traditional ideas, and then thinking about what you might need to change, within your career, or the way that your lifestyle is, set up to accommodate that. So I think that's the first one. The second one would be, I suppose, linked to that, which is that in a lot of cases, I think when we are, perhaps considering doing something new, whether it's a career change or building something different, into our lives, it can be very easy to get sort of bogged down by what others think, or this idea of imposter syndrome, which I'm sure maybe some previous guests might have talked to you about. this idea that I'm not good enough, or I'm not who do I think I am, doing doing this. And what I would say is that it's I think if you have an idea, or there's something that you want to pursue, just go with it with an open mind. Be curious as to where it can take you, and don't get bogged down by what others think, or what that sort of imposter syndrome, because it can be really, really it can be really, really debilitating in terms of holding you back of going for something that actually could be really good. And it's a way, I think, for our brain to sort of keep us, try to keep us safe, and keep us sort of in a fixed place, whereas actually it can always feel scary and perhaps a little bit unsettling to go after something new. But actually the rewards, I think, can be really worth it if you're prepared to navigate your way through that feeling that might be a little bit uncomfortable. So I think that's the other thing that I'd say, specifically with this idea of career change, or kind of reevaluating or redefining what you want your work life to look like.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I definitely second that. Josie, when you look at your career journey to date, what are you most proud of?
I think I would say it's been the ability to pivot and change as I go, and I suppose always be tapping into that thing I just talked about around what does success look like and what do I want to build. Not settling. I've moved across sectors a number of times. Earlier in my career, I was working in professional services. I took some time out to travel, took a 4-month sabbatical to travel across South America. And travel had always been a passion. And at that point, I thought actually I'd love to be working, in that area, in the travel sector, which is what I went on to do quite intentionally, because it was a sector I wanted to move into. I've pursued some other things in terms of gaining a coaching qualification to support what I was doing both in corporate life and with some of the things outside of work. As well as obviously what we've talked about. So I think I would say it's that ability to not settle, to be looking at actually what might that look like, be curious and be open to new ideas, and having courage, I suppose, to take the leap, because it can be hard, I think, to do something different.
Very cool. And what next for you and your business? Are there any projects in the pipeline that you can tell us about?
Yeah, so I mean, first and foremost, it's really about getting started. Once lockdown lifts, obviously the restrictions have been really hard over the last year for so many businesses in different ways. And I guess the crux of what I offer is both one-to-one sessions, which have been doable, sort of in the last lockdown, but I think it will be easier obviously once lockdown lifts, but also the idea of getting people together for group sessions, which hasn't been possible. And certainly in what I offer, that's one of the real joys and benefits, I suppose, of being able to bring dogs and their owners together, and that sort of social side for group runs. So just getting that sort of back up and running is going to be really important to me, and what I'm looking to do going forwards. One of the other things that I want to that I will be building into my offering as well is working with people that are really at the start of their running journey. So offering a canicross couch to 5K.
Oh wow!
So obviously a lot of people will be familiar with couch to 5K, as in the standard version that you would do running without a dog. But I will be starting up a series of courses where people can come and do that, so they get the same benefit of being able to reach that sort of 5K running goal, but they'll do it with their 4-legged PT by their side, with their dog along for the ride. So it's that's something that I'm really excited about, because I think there are, I'm sure, a lot of people who, we know, with the rise of sort of dog ownership over the last year, a lot of people with dogs, but also people that maybe are wanting to make that sort of lifestyle change with running, or to improve their fitness. So I think that's the perfect way to get started, and it makes it really accessible. So that's something that I'm really excited about being able to offer locally for people that want to do the couch to 5K with a twist of having their dog with them.
Exciting times ahead.
Yes. Yeah.
Very cool. As we start to wrap up, I'd like to ask you a few quick fire questions that our listeners are always interested in. So Josie, what do you do to relax outside of the office?
So at the moment, I'm spending a lot of time with my little boy. He's 5 months, so he's keeping me very, very busy. Going out on walks obviously has been a big thing for us, and discovering new local places that we can do that, but with both the dog and the baby. I'm also a really keen spin enthusiast. So I was going to a great studio in Richmond called Dig Me, which is amazing, pre-lockdown. And then obviously with me being, having some time out with the new baby, wasn't able to do that. But have been spinning from my kitchen because they've developed a great at-home offer, which is something that I've been sort of taking advantage of. So a spin class, when I can do that is great. And then I'm really hoping very soon, once the restrictions allow, to be able to get back to being able to cook and entertain people at home, because that's something that I love to do as well, which obviously haven't been able to do at all really over the last year. But to have people over, hopefully for some nice barbecues and some being able to sort of sit around a dinner table is something that I really can't wait for.
Yeah, I definitely second that. It's those little things that I think have made a difference to me in lockdown. I think I lived a pretty minimalist life in general, but those little human touches, they do make a massive difference. So I definitely second that. Are there any
aren't we?
Sorry, say that again. Sorry.
I said we're all missing that connection, aren't we?
Oh wow, amazing! Yeah, absolutely. Are there any books that you've recently read that you would recommend to our listeners?
There are two actually that I think might be relevant based on what we've discussed. So the first one is called "Everything is Figureoutable" by Marie Forleo. Mm-hmm. So some of your listeners might have come across her. She's pretty famous now as a writer and as a coach, essentially. So I think I found this book brilliant. It's a very kind of accessible way to get into some coaching principles around mindset and how to sort of work things out, whatever it is you want to do, whether it's about leaving a job, whether it's to do with relationships, growing a business, sort out your money mindset, or whatever it might be. It's a really good very accessible walkthrough in terms of how to do that, to get your brain to sort of think more positively and breaking down those sort of bigger dreams into very sort of easily manageable steps. So that's the first one, because I think for anyone that is I suppose struggling with something, it's a great I found it a great help. That's the first one. The second one is sort of connected to this idea of kind of thinking about careers in kind of new ways and exploring, what that might look like. And the second book is called The Multi-Hyphen Method, which is by a writer called Emma Gannon. And again, I found that a really interesting read when I was starting to sort of explore what that might look like in terms of a career that isn't just one thing, that is a number of different things, and this idea of multiple different this idea of multiple income streams and doing a number of different things. And that book is a really, really good I'd say kind of starting point for anyone that is curious about redesigning their career in that way.
That's really interesting. And are there any movies or TV shows that you've recently watched that you'd recommend to our listeners?
So movies, I'd actually pull out the last one that I saw at the cinema. So this is obviously going back now, sort of just over a year ago, and that's Parasite, which I think went on to win quite a few awards. I don't go to the cinema very, very often. It was something sort of pre-lockdown even, that was a bit of a sort of a treat thing. But I was just blown away by this film. It really didn't go where I expected to, and it was just something that I found it so thought provoking. I was really sort of thinking about it for a long time afterwards. So that's probably the one that I would recommend. In terms of TV shows, again, this is something, there's been a couple of series now, but my sort of go-to over the last year has been Succession, which is a series that was on Sky.
Yeah, a couple of guests have mentioned that already. I haven't checked it out yet.
Yeah, it's so there've been a couple of series, and again, it's one where I think the writing and the sort of the characterization is so brilliantly done. I really recommend it.
Very cool. And finally, where can people go to find out more about you and your business?
Yeah, so there's a couple of places. First of all, I would say sort of at a top level, if someone is thinking, canicross, this sounds interesting, I'd like to sort of find out more, or maybe be able to sort of explore what it looks like in terms of kit and kind of find other resources. I would recommend that they go and check out the Dog Fit website, which is just Dog Fit, all one word, so DOGFIT. And there's loads and loads of resources on there. There's lots of blog posts. There's a whole selection of recommended kits. And there's and the network of trainers, so you can find a trainer that is locally to you. So obviously I'm I'm on there for our area. So that would be a good place as a kind of a top level resource just to learn a little bit more about canicross. I also have my own channels, so I'm most active on Instagram. I'm at Ginger Paw canicross on Instagram, so always happy to connect with anyone on there. And I post lots of kind of dog related content on there, and then at Facebook as well. If someone was to search Ginger Paw canicross, they would find my page there. So I keep it quite simple in terms of those channels. But if anyone is struggling to sort of find me via my own channels, they can also contact DogFit directly, who will put anyone in touch with me directly if they're sort of living in the local area, to be matched with me as their trainer. So those are that's where I can be found online, and there's information on both my Facebook and my Instagram, with a little web page from there about what I offer, some of the things that we've talked about, which in a nutshell really is one-to-ones. So I can do one-to-one sessions for anyone that wants to have that sort of more personalised experience in terms of understanding the basics of canicross, and actually getting started with that real sort of personalised touch. So I do that as hour or 90-minute sessions that can be very flexible, kind of single person, or I've had someone contact me recently actually where it's a couple, where they're both looking to start running with their dogs. So you can do that as well if it's a sort of a family group. The Catch to 5K I mentioned, I'll be having a first course for that starting up in April, and then hoping to start some sort of group, pack runs as well, sort of social runs that would happen on a weekly basis. As well as online coaching. So I actually do some online coaching through Dog Fit for people that perhaps can't access a trainer near to them, an in-person sort of session, and want to be able to have that online coaching. That's an option as well. So those are all the ways. But the Dog Fit site here, as I say, I'm one of their trainers. That would be a good place to start.
Okay, and for the benefit of our listeners, I'll make sure that I add those links to the show notes. Josie, thank you for joining us here on the Inside Kingston podcast. It's been a pleasure getting to know your story.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, it's been lovely chatting.
That wraps up another episode of the Inside Kingston podcast. Make sure to check out our guests' website, pay them a visit, and help spread the word about what they're doing. If you have any questions or know someone who should be a guest on the show, please feel free to get in touch. I would also love it if you could go to iTunes and leave us a review and a 5-star rating. We work hard to bring on some great guests, and getting a review from you is one way to help the podcast rate well on iTunes so that others can find and enjoy the show too. Thanks for listening.